At exactly 12:17 a.m., the knocking began, soft, slow, deliberate. Every night the same sound. The family was terrified. Not because someone might be out there, but because no one ever was. In the fall of 2004, the Holloway family moved into a modest farmhouse on the outskirts of Mason Hollow, a quiet rural town in upstate Pennsylvania. It was the kind of place where most folks knew each other, and the loudest sounds at night were crickets chirping or the occasional barking dog. It seemed like the perfect place to raise a family. Daniel and Claire Holloway had spent the last few years saving every penny to escape the chaos of Philadelphia. They wanted their kids, 14-year-old Megan and 9-year-old Jacob, to grow up with space to breathe, without sirens outside their window. When they found the old house on Red Pine Road, sitting on 5 acres and surrounded by thick woods, it felt like fate. The house had charm, peeling white paint, creaky floors, and a red barn out back that hadn't been touched in years. It was a fixer-upper, no doubt, but Daniel was handy, and Claire loved the idea of restoring it. Locals called it the Ravener Place, after the family who originally built it in the 1920s. But no one had lived there for over a decade. The real estate agent said the last owner had died, and the place sat vacant ever since. She brushed off the rumors, of course, the usual small-town stories about bad luck and weird things out in those woods. For the first month, life in Mason Hollow was peaceful. The kids started school. Daniel got work as a mechanic at the nearby shop, and Claire began gardening, excited to grow her own vegetables. They were happy. Until the knocking started. It began on a Tuesday night in early October. The family was asleep when Claire woke to a strange sound, 3 soft knocks. Not urgent. Not aggressive. Just deliberate. Knock. 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 She thought it might be a branch brushing the siding, or maybe one of the kids sleepwalking. She went downstairs. Checked the front door. Nothing. The porch was empty. The wind was still. She chalked it up to the house settling. But the next night? Same thing. 12:17 a.m. 3 knocks. Always the same rhythm. Always the same time. By the 5th night, Daniel sat up in bed when he heard it. He ran to the door, yanked it open, and saw no one. Just the porch light flickering, the gravel driveway stretching into pitch-black forest. They started to get nervous. Daniel installed a motion light. Put up an old camcorder with night vision. But the camera never caught anything. The light would trip, and then, nothing. Just darkness. Then Megan started waking up with night terrors. She told Claire she dreamed someone was standing outside her window, watching her. A tall figure motionless, with hands pressed against the glass. Jacob, the youngest, began wetting the bed again. He wouldn't sleep unless he was between his parents. He said the man from the woods told him he would knock until someone answered. Daniel wasn't a superstitious man, but he was growing anxious. He stayed up late one night, sitting in the dark living room with a baseball bat across his lap. 12:17 a.m. Knock. 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 He charged outside, no flashlight, just adrenaline, and heard rustling at the edge of the woods. He swore he saw someone duck behind a tree. But when he ran after them, no one was there. Not a single footprint in the soft earth. Over the next week, things escalated. One morning, Claire found muddy handprints on the back window. Far too high for either of the kids. Megan's school books were rearranged on her desk into 3 perfect stacks. They began hearing the knocks on other doors in the house, once on the garage. Once on the attic entrance. Always 3. Always 12:17. Claire begged Daniel to leave. But with their money tied up in the house, they had nowhere else to go. They didn't know it yet, but the knocking wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. It happened on October 14th, the 12th night of the knocking. That day had been cold and gray, the kind of fall chill that seeps into your bones. The kids came home from school quiet. Megan stayed in her room. Jacob didn't even touch his cereal. Claire had started sleeping in the kids' room with them, while Daniel kept his post downstairs. That night, she kissed the kids goodnight, and closed the door behind her. Daniel stayed up late, watching the news with the volume low. At 12:15, he turned off the TV. Waited in the dark. 12:17 a.m. Knock. 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 But this time, it came from inside the house. Daniel froze. The sound had come from the basement door. He stood, slowly, and approached it, heart pounding. He pressed his ear to the wood. Nothing. He flung it open and turned on the light. Empty. But something caught his eye. On the wall at the base of the stairs, written in mud. Answer me. He bolted upstairs to check the kids, and found Claire asleep on the floor, blanket pulled over her. But Jacob was gone. His bed was empty. Window cracked open. Pajamas still warm. They called the police immediately. Deputies arrived within 20 minutes, but there were no signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. No footprints outside the window. Not even a trail in the grass. Just a small muddy handprint, pressed against the inside of the glass. A full search of the property turned up nothing. Canine units combed the woods for days, helicopters flew overhead, neighbors volunteered, but there wasn't a single clue. Jacob had vanished without a sound. Investigators were baffled. There was no ransom note. No known enemies. No evidence that anyone had even entered the house. When they reviewed the security footage, it was corrupted, just static for the hour between 12:15 and 1:15 a.m. The Holloways were devastated. Megan refused to sleep in the house anymore. Claire stopped speaking for days. Daniel grew angry, convinced they were being watched. The knocking stopped. Not once more after Jacob disappeared did anyone hear it again. It was as if whoever had been knocking had finally been answered. 2 months after Jacob's disappearance, the case had gone cold. There were no leads, no suspects, no new evidence. It became a ghost story whispered around Mason Hollow, a warning parents told their kids when the wind howled at night. Then, just days before Christmas, a letter arrived. It was addressed to Daniel Holloway, no return address. Postmarked from Colden Creek, a remote mountain town over 200 miles away. Inside was a single, handwritten message, in shaky, childlike print. He likes the quiet. He only takes the lonely ones. Please don't knock back. No signature. No explanation. The FBI got involved. Colden Creek had no record of similar disappearances. No known suspects. But they did find something odd. 3 years earlier, a family in Colden Creek had reported repeated knocking at their cabin's door, same time every night, just before their youngest daughter disappeared. Her case had also gone unsolved. The agents started digging deeper and uncovered 4 other families across the Northeast over the past 15 years who had described nearly identical experiences. Same knocking. Same time. Same vanishing. Always the youngest child. Always with no signs of entry. A new theory formed. This wasn't just an isolated incident. It might be part of a pattern. One FBI profiler noted something chilling. Each family had recently moved into isolated properties that had been vacant for long periods, just like the Holloways. Even more unsettling? Every family had experienced the knocking for exactly 12 nights. And on the 13th, their child disappeared. Claire was shattered by the realization that they had been living inside some kind of twisted countdown. A ritual. A cycle. But what no one could answer was who or what was behind it, or why the knocking always came at 12:17 a.m. Despite the FBI's involvement and the trail of similar cases, there was no arrest. No named suspect. No evidence to tie one person, or group, to any of the disappearances. Jacob Holloway was classified as a missing person under suspicious circumstances. His case remains open but inactive. The Holloways stayed in Mason Hollow for another 6 months, hoping for a breakthrough, a tip, anything. But it never came. Claire was never the same. She fell into a deep depression, eventually hospitalized after attempting to take her own life. Megan was sent to live with her aunt in Ohio. Daniel, alone and angry, sold the house at a massive loss and disappeared from public view. As of today, nearly 20 years later, the farmhouse on Red Pine Road remains abandoned. Locals say no one's lived there since. The property is overgrown, the porch caved in, the windows shattered. But strange things still happen. Neighbors report hearing knocks in the dead of night, faint, but unmistakable. Some claim to have seen small handprints on the dusty glass panes the next morning. One local sheriff's deputy, now retired, admitted anonymously, "I don't believe in ghosts. But I was out there one night, parked across from the Holloway place. 12:17 a.m. I heard it clear as day. 3 knocks. And then a child's voice. Laughing. There was no one around." To this day, the case of Jacob Holloway remains unsolved. No remains. No confirmed sightings. Just a lingering fear that something waits in the dark for the next empty house. The next quiet family. The next child, willing to open the door. If this story disturbed you, it should. Because Jacob's case isn't fiction. Families across the country have experienced things no one can explain, events that leave behind more questions than answers. So we ask you, have you ever heard something you couldn't explain? A knock at the door when no one was there? A whisper in the dark? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you know of a story that deserves to be told, message us. Because Stories TrueVibe is here to give a voice to the mysteries that never got answers.